second episode of the 4 Point Play podcast, where a bunch of high schoolers jump on Zoom and talk about basketball for 30 minutes. I'm Naylin, Trailblazers fan.
Kushaal, I'm a Warriors fan.
Ishan, I'm a Houston Rockets fan.
I'm Rohan, and I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan.
So today we're going to be talking about East power rankings, and maybe if we have enough time, hopefully get into some awards, early predictions. But in terms of East rankings, I think we all have the Nets as the number one team, probably in the NBA. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you see a healthy Harden on that team last year, and I think Kyrie also missed some time, then you see the Nets winning a championship. So I don't think there's any disagreements there. But do you think this new Lakers team or the Bucks could potentially be competitive to them, or are we just sticking with the Nets?
I mean, if the Nets are injured, then sure. But yeah.
And competitive is a bit of a loose word. I mean, competitive would be, both teams going off in like the conference finals or finals. I think just because of how the season is structured, I do think that as we discussed last time, the Lakers will be the number one in the West. So if it's a Lakers-Nets finals, I guess you could consider that competing, but I'd have the Nets winning in 5 or 6. I just think that there's just nothing you can do with that kind of offensive firepower, and they do have much better depth than they did when they initially had the trade. I think Claxton is a really solid center, and Blake Griffin provides, some contribution, and the pickup of Patty Mills is obviously really good, for the Nets, like a tertiary playmaker. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think getting Patty Mills is great. You get some more offensive firepower. And then you have 3 superstars. I mean, you can't really stop that. And Harden's really been a great addition to that team. So, yeah, I think the Nets will comfortably win the East if they don't have any health concerns. But do you think that's a potential concern that we should have with Irving's continuous health concerns? I mean, he has missed a significant amount of time throughout his career. Harden at this point, I mean, he has been durable during his Rockets days, but I guess hamstring injuries coming up. But do you think the Nets can sustain their health coming into the playoffs?
I mean, that's something you can never really predict. But,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I guess I would just put my money on them being healthy, because you obviously don't want to see anybody being injured. So, yeah.
I'd say there's a good chance that one of them is going to get injured.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, hopefully they stay healthy, but I think Kyrie's going to be Kyrie, and KD will probably be healthy. I don't know. I'd say I'd put money on one of them being injured. That's not just based on injury.
I still think that even with KD and Harden, there's still like.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, KD was like an inch away from winning an NBA championship, right?
And what's crazy is that Harden was probably only like 50 to 60% of what he is. He was kind of just like a decoy.
He was basically limping and playing.
And the Nets still took the champions to 7 games. So to overtime in 7 games. So
and that's just too hard to stop. I think just that offensive superpower is just too much. But with the second team, are we going with the champs? Are we going with the Bucks? That's who I have as the second best team in the East.
I also have the Bucks.
Yeah, I think Giannis has they lose PJ Tucker, which I think was unfortunate, but they still have a great supporting cast. They added Grayson Allen, which I thought was a pretty decent pickup. Someone who can shoot. And then you've got Drew and Middleton, who had some situations in the playoffs where they were underperforming, but eventually, just a great supporting cast. So I think the Bucks, with Giannis, continuing his dominance, I think we could see the Bucks being competitive in the playoffs. And then I did have concerns previously when the Bucks were not this year, but you saw Bud as a concern from the coaching side, but he definitely has shown different schemes in the playoffs. And yeah, I think the Bucks are going to prove competitive in the playoffs. I just don't see them beating the Nets. I think they got kind of a bit lucky with that run, playing against an injured team. So yeah, I have them second. I think they're going to stay that way. But yeah, just agreement over there. But third, I feel like we could have some debate. Who do you guys have third on your list?
Well, for me, for the third place, I'm kind of conflicted between three teams. So
Okay.
Sixers, Heat, and Celtics.
Okay.
But I don't know. I feel like I'll just give Sixers the edge.
Yeah, I have the Sixers.
Yeah,
But
the
I
Sixers
do
too. I
not
mean, we
have
don't know
the
what's gonna happen with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kushaal.
I don't have the Celtics in contention with them.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna move away from everyone's Sixers prediction. I think the Sixers are an interesting team, but I'm gonna go with the Heat as the third best team in the East. I was thinking about the Sixers, but I think they'll have a good regular season. I have concerns with Embiid and Simmons' relationship because there's no question that's in jeopardy right now. We don't know the status of Simmons. I think he's probably going to stay with the Sixers just because Morey's asking for such a high price for Ben Simmons, and I no one really wants to pay that much for Ben Simmons with the amount of assets they have to give up. I think the Sixers could be a good regular season team, but just going into the playoffs, I still have doubts. I think Doc Rivers as a coach is still questionable, and I think just their momentum in the playoffs hasn't been great recently. I think the Heat as a team, you guys know how much of a fan I am of the Heat. I think they've been always great in the playoffs, except last year they were definitely had a failure over there. But I think the Heat are revitalized, and I think they can be the third best team in the East.
Yeah,
And that loss of PJ Tucker you were talking about was
Yeah.
So.
But do you guys have the Heat fourth? Is that
I have the
consensus? Okay. So I think just looking at the Heat as a team, like with the addition of Lowry, I know he's kind of old, but if you look at that lineup of Lowry, Oladipo, Butler, Tucker, and Bam, that's such a good defensive lineup. I mean, you can basically switch anything. And I think the only concern I have is with their bench. They just have Hero Robinson. I feel like they need to add more to their bench. They're also really small. Bam is a kind of undersized center, 6'9", maybe just about 6'10", but you want kind of a bigger body. So I feel like you still have a couple free agents left. Looking at some veterans that could fill up that bench roles would be really nice. But just as a whole, their starting lineup, if Oladipo can return to a decent enough form, I think that lineup is just so good defensively, and offensively you have so many different outlooks. So I think the Heat are a really good team to watch, have great coaching staff, and that's the reason why I personally have them over the Sixers going into the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking here. They also picked up Markieff Morris, and I think that
I forgot
he's a
about that.
good contributor off the bench for them. And I mean, I think the Sixers are a bit more unpredictable, and I mean, you can't deny that. But I really do like Tobias Harris as well. He was disappointing against the Hawks, but I'm a fan of him. And Embiid is obviously such a dominant force. And the issue with Embiid was always just how bad does he want it? Like what's his ethic going to be like? How dedicated is he? And then this season, you really saw a shift, and you saw a shift in his mentality. And I think that that's something we can see continue. I think he'll be up there in the MVP discussion. And I'm also a big fan of Steph Curry. It hurts, but I'm a big fan of Steph Curry.
I feel you.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think we both, touching on like Embiid as an MVP candidate, I also have him like up there with a potential MVP. I mean, we saw at the start of the season where he was just straight dominating, and then injury concerns. That's the only thing I could see taking effect into his MVP candidate season. But definitely someone to watch out for MVP. He's definitely up there in my list along with some other superstars.
Definitely.
Next on that would be, so I have after the Heat, I have the Sixers. And you guys obviously have the Heat, but after that's it's gonna be kind of interesting. So I have the Celtics after that, which I think maybe is a bit controversial. Who do you guys have?
I have the Celtics as well.
I have the
Hawks. I just feel like Al Horford being back in the Celtics is going to be really good because he's a really good center. Like his passing is really good as well. And I feel like last season it was a bad year for Celtics, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think
they were close.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. The way I see it is that they kind of had an outlier season and they've made substantial moves. I think Horford back is great, obviously, and he wants to play there. But I think having a new head coach in Ime Udoka is going to be really big for them. I think he can revitalize that offense. And then smaller moves, but I mean, another move is looking at Robert Williams' development. He's on a hefty contract. I think it's 4 years, 54 million. And you see that contract and you think he only has 13 career starts, which is pretty crazy and you're getting that big of a contract. But yeah, it's definitely a big bet for him to blow up. He's one of my candidates for most improved because I just think he's that good and he has some playmaking potential as well. So I think Robert Williams will be a player to watch, but I just think when you have Jason Tatum, such a great player, great two-way player, you know, Jaylen Brown, I'm a huge fan of Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. Yeah, I have them over the Hawks, which is tough to say, but I think the Celtics are definitely a team that I can look out for just because of how good they were the previous year, not this year, the previous year when they were competing with the Heat and the Raptors. They were just great overall. So I think the Celtics can return to great form. But yeah, that's why I have them over the Hawks personally.
Well, I have the Hawks over them.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're a very young team. I could only see them getting better. And they already have made the Western Conference Finals, though their path was not the hardest. I still can't put them. I feel like I can't put them any lower. I could definitely see the Celtics being better than them come playoff time, but just like right now, after their run, I don't think I can put the Celtics over them.
I agree, and I'm looking at the Celtics roster right now. Ishan, I think, you know, Al Horford is a good pickup. He's familiar with the Celtics system. He's familiar with Jason Tatum taking the lead. But I also think that the last time we saw him, he was with the Sixers. He was with the Thunder, but he was quickly benched just to provide experience. And seeing him with the Sixers wasn't really a positive thing. Obviously, I think that he'll play a lot better because I think the issue was just him working with Embiid. They picked up Cantor, which I think is a good pickup. He's a great offensive rebounder. And as much as people want to clown on him, Dennis Schroeder for $6 million is not too bad. You know, this is someone we were talking about just like 18 months ago as he was my sixth man of the year last year. I thought he had a really good season with Oklahoma City Thunder. And yeah, you know, they re-signed Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum. He's going to stay for at least a few more years. And I think he's going to have a top 10 caliber season next season. I think he's only going to get better, you know. Yeah, they got Josh Richardson too. I don't want to comment on that. I don't want to be too mean, but yeah. So
no, I think getting Schroeder for that cheap, like, you know, he fumbled the bag with whatever contract situation that he had, but $6 million for a player like him is great. So I think coupled with some of the other pickups they have, I think just their experience with the playoffs. I know the Hawks, young team, can definitely proved a lot of people wrong. And you have to look at Trae Young's development. He's developed such a great player, and hopefully you can sustain that even more. Looking at John Collins, and they have a bunch of other pieces that I really want to see, like Reddish, Hunter, Herter, who I think would be a really good bench piece next season. So I think the Hawks are definitely close to the Celtics. I just have, to me, I just see Ime Udoka and hopefully kind of just making this team a lot better. I'm a huge fan of coaching changes that can revitalize a team, partly because I hope I see that with the Blazers, but I think it'll happen with the Celtics. I think that's one. He's personally my pick for Coach of the Year. I'm really high on him as someone who can bring the Celtics back. So yeah, that's the reason I have them there, and then the Hawks next.
And if there's something I can add, because I mean, we spoke about the Celtics, is I think the reason I have the Hawks a little bit higher is, like Kushaal said, we've seen them established. A lot of people, you know, Trae Young deserves a lot of credit, but this roster is incredible. I mean, there's a lot of talent around him. And if you look at it, they're deadly with the pick and roll. You have people like Capella and Collins who are amazing rollers who can finish very, very easily. You know, Capella was considered like a member of the Big Three in Houston, if you wanted to call it that. And I think he's absolutely a phenomenal center. John Collins is incredibly versatile. Then you have people like Bogdan Bogdanovic. He's an incredible shooter. And Cam Reddish, I also do think that Cam Reddish is someone who can develop a lot more this year. He was injured this year, but I think we saw him play a couple of games in the Bucks series where he was actually playing pretty well. And yeah, and then obviously you have Trae Young, and he's obviously been phenomenal. So yeah.
Well, for me personally, I think the Celtics are more talented than the Hawks. Like they have a more talented roster, but I just can't ignore the Hawks playoffs run. I mean, they took the champs to six. As I mean, that's even though it's not seven, six is a lot, especially for a young team. Like if you asked me last year before the playoffs, who would do better off, the Celtics or the Hawks? I would have said the Celtics
by far. Yeah.
But I just can't ignore how they did in the playoffs.
Like one thing you noticed when you sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I finished.
Oh yeah. So I think one thing that you really noticed when you were watching the Atlanta Hawks in the postseason, especially, is that they played with a really high level of cohesion. Like their chemistry is really it's up there. And so, this is not a selfish team. All these players just want to win, and I think that's a very important asset to have.
Yeah, I think just the way the Hawks are built, like they're really deep. You can name like six to seven bench guys that could pop off in a game. I think they've really built that team well. And I can totally understand putting them over the Celtics. To me, it's just that I'm kind of sticking with that experience that Tatum and Brown have, and kind of counting on a good coaching change and development on Tatum's end to really power them through. But Hawks for sure are a team that I like. I really want to see the rest of the team improving. Collins has taken that jump. Just a question of Hunter and Reddish, if they can stay healthy. I think Hunter had that meniscus thing. But yeah, just seeing if either Hunter, Reddish, or Herter can take that jump into being a really good player would be the next step for the Hawks. But their drafting has been incredible. I think they've been really underrated on the drafting side. They've always picked up good players. And yeah, hopefully coming the next season, they can kind of mirror what they've done before and have a really smooth time in the playoffs. So yeah, I think some debate with the placing of the Celtics and the Hawks, but overall, I think we can put those teams close together. But on the next, I think we're going to be discussing either the Bulls or the Knicks. So I know Ishan really likes the Bulls ever since they got.
Wait, are we on 6 or 7?
So we are on 1 second.
We're on 7 and 8, I think.
Yeah, we're on 7 and 8 as of now.
Yeah, I think we have the same 6 teams in the top 6, just the orders.
Yeah, just the orders a bit changed. So I have this is kind of a debate that I was going through. Do I put the Bulls or do I put the Knicks? And I'm still kind of unsure. I have them on the same tier. I think the Bulls just have a more they have the more talented roster. We have like DeRozan and Lonzo, who hopefully has a really good season, Caruso, and just a bunch of like Vooch, Levine. They have a really talented roster, and I can see them probably doing well in the regular season. Kind of concerned for the playoffs, and you have someone like Billy Donovan coaching them. Let's see how that goes. But the Knicks, I know I really like the cohesion they've had. They've added someone like Kemba Walker, who I think will be really good for them. He's on a reasonable deal. Get someone like Evan Fournier, which also looks interesting. And they exceeded expectations last year in terms of seeding. So I could see them doing the same thing this time. I just don't really know if I go with the Bulls or the Knicks on this one. How do you guys feel?
I have the Bulls over the Knicks just because of their talent.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
I feel like the Knicks may have got a bit lucky last year in like terms of like how well they did. I feel like Randall might not stay on that level, And then, honestly, yeah, I mean, just the Bulls are Vooch, DeRozan, Vooch. They have a lot of people.
If this was 2 years ago, that would be one of the best starting fives in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a sad day for me because I really thought DeRozan was going to come to the Mavs, but he has been like one of the more quiet players with his time on the Spurs, but he's incredibly efficient. His mid-range game is absolutely deadly. Like it's ridiculous. Contrary to popular belief, he is not a choker in the clutch, and I do think that he's definitely an amazing pickup. You have Lonzo, whose growth has actually been pretty impressive. He went from being traded from the Lakers and then in New Orleans with Zion on there. Their whole, lob city or whatever you want to call it was really good. His shooting has taken an incredible jump. I mean, that's something that most people have noticed. He can be a good spot-up shooter. And Zach LaVine is tremendous. I mean, he's just so he's just one of those players that a lot of people would pay to watch. And am I forgetting anybody? It's a very good starting. Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Vooch too, and obviously Alex Caruso is the most important piece. But
Draw someone else.
huh?
Patrick Williams.
Your
Patrick
favorite.
Williams. He's going to develop.
I mean, as someone who really likes the Bulls, Ishan, I want to hear your take on that. Where do you see the Bulls going this season?
I have the Bulls over the
Knicks.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I just feel like I'm pretty sure we just got Derek Jones Jr.
Yeah, you got Derek Jones
Yeah.
Jr. as well. That 3 teams.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a solid pickup. He's really good for Portland as well. He's defensively really good as well.
Yeah.
And Patrick Williams, he has a really good mid-range game. It's only going to get better. Defensively, he did, I think it was against Lakers, right? He was guarding LeBron, and he made it really tough for him as well. He's very versatile, and I just think he's gonna have a breakout year as well, pretty soon.
Yeah.
I feel like he fits in perfectly for the Bulls, and now that Markkanen's gone, who I think was useless, that's good as well.
Well,
So-
I have Zoe as my most improved player. So
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like Zoe is gonna be really good in like a very talented team like the Bulls. Like just his play style fits that. Like on the Pelicans, I mean he had Zion and Ingram, but like in comparison, the Bulls are much more or have much more talent. I feel like Zoe's used to a team will be a lot more. Like I feel like he will provide a lot more, like in general as a player.
Yeah.
And I feel like he could help the Bulls win. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think-
sorry, Neil, I just want to add this.
Yeah,
I think the Knicks, it's more likely that they might have a higher seeding, but in terms of power rankings, I mean, I really don't know how to describe it accurately because of how mad it made me. But Julius Randle in the playoffs was like disturbing. It was
really bad.
horrible. I'm looking at it here. He averaged more turnovers than assists, and he averaged 18 points a game compared to what he averaged in the regular season, which was 24.
I mean, yeah, he was atrocious, but I think
33% from 3, and he shot 28% from 2. Like his overall field goal percentage was 29.8%, and that's a big reason as to why the Knicks lost. I think as tremendous as the season was, I think the regular season, I do like Kemba. I've not always been the biggest fan of him, but it's a good pickup for $9 million. And Fournier is a bit overpaid, but he's a good contributor too. But yeah.
The reason why I still like the Knicks is just because the reason they struggle in the playoffs, they were still pretty decent defensively, just that they don't really have anything offensively to create. And I think RJ hopefully finally takes that leap that he can. And when you add offensive firepower like Fournier and Kemba, I think it's great. Kemba's a good mentor as well. So that's the reason I'm still kind of high on the Knicks. I think the Bulls definitely have the more talented roster, and Lonzo hopefully takes that leap and becomes that most improved player. But that's that. And speaking of Williams, when I first saw Williams drafted, I can remember because all the draft boards were saying that he would go late lottery, and then the Bulls take him 4th, which was a huge surprise. But he's definitely exceeded my expectations, and I would probably put him in the most improved conversation if the Bulls didn't have that much of a stacked roster. I know Ishan loves Patrick Williams a lot, and I think he can be a contributor. It's just a question of that the team is really deep, so I don't know if he can take that leap yet. Just hopefully in the future because he does have that talent. In terms of after that, I think it's where it kind of gets interesting. So these are the teams slightly below the play-in category. But over here, it's kind of dead competition. But who do you guys have after that?
Pacers.
I have the Hornets at 9th. I have Hornets right below the Knicks. So I just think they were like 4th at one point last year, right?
Yeah, and then Hayward.
East was very volatile. The East was very volatile last year. Yeah. I think this a similar thing with the Hawks. They're a super young team, so they can only get better. And that's just the ninth. I mean, I'd say ninth in terms of power rankings is a good place for them. LaMelo, I don't think he's gonna decline. I think he's gonna get better as a rookie normally does. And then I don't know, the Hornets they're just a team with a lot of potential, and I think this year they're gonna take a step in, achieving that potential that they have. Not a big step, but like a step. So yeah, I have them ninth.
Yeah.
I actually have the Pacers. Always been high on the Pacers, and I don't think the difference between the Pacers and the Hornets is huge. I just think their starting lineup is pretty strong. I mean, you have Brogdon, you have Levert, you have Sabonis, Miles Turner, and probably TJ Warren. I think it's a good starting five, and their depth is good enough to have an impact. I mean, Torrey Craig, I like. I think Justin Holiday is pretty good too. TJ McConnell had a few very good games last season. And yeah, I just have them slightly ahead of the Hornets, not very much.
Yeah. So I'm kind of conflicted between the two, but I think I sort of lean towards the Hornets. I think the Pacers have the more talented team, for sure. It's just that something about the Hornets and last year they had that they had a pretty good season where they were up there, and then LaMelo got injured. I think they just have this sort of momentum with all their young guys who are really hungry, and for some reason they keep exceeding expectations. And they have a coach that I like. And for some reason, I don't know how logical it is. I just have the Hornets higher than them. It's just kind of a thing where I feel like they can exceed those expectations again. And they're a really exciting team to watch. I think the Pacers have more talent. I really want to see how Carlisle sets a new culture for them, because the Pacers in the past haven't really had good coaches. Like it's pretty sad. But I think they need a culture reset, and I hope Carlisle can bring that. I'm not really a huge fan of Carlisle as a coach, but I do think that he can have that veteran experience and hopefully set in a new sort of culture in the Pacers. That's the only reason I can see the Pacers being slightly higher than the Hornets. But something about the Hornets and exceeding expectations just resonates with me, and I feel like they're a young team. They're really hungry to rise up. So that's the reason why I have the Hornets. And I can see the Pacers going up.
Like when you see them playing basketball, one thing I will say about the Hornets is that they're just always having fun, and because of that, they're able to sell and they're able to get a lot better as a group. Plus, they picked up Oubre. I had higher expectations for him with the Warriors, but I do think it's a good enough pickup, and I think it's a good fit too. And
I don't think Oubre is going to be as bad as he was for the Warriors.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he might go back to that Suns level potentially, because he's on a different. I mean, I don't know. The Warriors were a unique situation, or the Warriors were weird. I don't know. Oubre had some good stretches on the Warriors. I feel like he's gonna grow out of those bad stretches on the Hornets just because the culture is different. Not saying the Warriors culture is bad or anything. It's just a different type of setting, So I feel like Oubre could get back to his Suns level in the Hornets.
Yeah. Well, I agree, because if you look at the contracts that were offered to Oubre, there was a lot of contenders that offered him to sign with their teams. I know the Blazers offered him a contract, and I would have liked to see him on the Blazers. But the reason why he picked the Hornets, and that for a 2-year deal, is because he believes in himself. He thinks that he can, after these 2 years, he can get a bigger contract. He's still young, and I do think he's going to have a good season with the Hornets. I definitely think he fits in better there with that kind of younger roster. So hopefully a good season from him. He's a great player, great point of attack defender. Overall, I think the Hornets would be an exciting team to watch. But yeah, Ishan, do you have the Hornets or the Pacers on the next year?
I have the Pacers just above.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And then after that, I think kind of gets to the more depressing teams. But I guess the Wizards go over here for the next team.
I have the Raptors.
Yeah,
the Raptors.
I mean,
see with the Raptors, right?
They're polarizing.
Siakam's out for a long time. He's got injured. So the way I see the Raptors is that I don't know if they're trying to tank or what exactly their whole situation is. Like you get a lottery pick and you pick up Scotty Barnes, who I thought initially was a bad pick, but he's they're definitely developing. But I don't really understand why you're keeping Siakam around if you're not intending to like actually compete. Or why you have Fred VanVleet. He doesn't fit that timeline either. So I'm kind of confused why they're not shipping them out if they're actually trying to hopefully compete, like, or maybe they're not getting good enough offers for them. So I'm confused if the Raptors are going for the tanking route or trying to. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me. I'm a bit confused about that. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the Raptors.
They're kind of in like a sort of perjury. I mean, not perjury, purgatory. Is that the word? Yeah. But below the Raptors, I have the Magic.
Okay. I have the Wizards.
Yeah.
I have the Wizards pretty low, actually.
Yeah, I have the Wizards 13.
I have them 14.
I have the Wizards over here because I think Beal's good enough where he's just scoring enough to hopefully get them a few wins. And just because I think the Raptors are going to go for the tanking route, though I'm still unsure about that. I still have a couple question marks. The thing is with the Raptors is my most improved player, OG Anunoby, with Siakam out, I think that he's going to be taking the next leap. And maybe that results in them winning more games than we expect. But I'm a really big fan of OG Anunoby. I think with Pascal out, it's perfect time for him to shine. Defensively, I feel like he can become the best defensive player in the entire league. Like, I feel like he's that good, and I have a lot of faith in him. It's partly because the Blazers missed out drafting on him, and that was sad. But great player. I think his two-way ability is just insane. And yeah, he just basically has a bit of everything, and that's why I have him most improved. I had him most improved actually last year, and he had some injury concerns, and the Raptors were doing whatever the Raptors were doing. I don't even know what they're doing at this point, but hopefully he takes that leap this year, and maybe that results in them getting on into higher wins, which would put them where Kushaal has them. But as of now, I think I'm going to go with the Wizards just because I think Rui has a chance of slightly breaking out, Beal's scoring, and a new coach. So hopefully the Wizards are at a decent level, but who even knows at this point.
Yeah, I think after that, so that's the top 12, 13.
Yeah.
At 13, 14, and 15 are the Pistons, Magic, and Cavs. I'm a big fan of Cade Cunningham. They also have much more young talent. They have Sadiq Bey, they have Killian Hayes, and these are players that I think definitely have bright futures. And as Naylin pointed out, Cade Cunningham is, you would call him a generational talent. He's very versatile. His NBA comparison is Luka, so I don't know what more to say. But yeah, and then I have the Magic. The Magic is kind of funny. All these players that you saw hyped up by the media are kind of on the Magic now. You have Cole Anthony, you have RJ Hampton, and you have Jalen Suggs, along with people like Mo Bamba, a veteran player like Terrence Ross. I think that they're going to develop pretty well, but I don't think that this year I'd put them higher than the Pistons. And then last I had the Cavs. I don't think I could explain it very much, but yeah.
Oh no, I kind of disagree with Magic. I feel like they're gonna be a lot higher. Like, what I mean is like 12 or something.
Yeah.
I feel like Fultz made a big improvement last year as well, and now they have Carter Jr. as well, and I think he's pretty solid. And
I just don't really know about Markel's help. I think that's.
Wait, what about Isaac? Is he still injured?
What I've heard is that Isaac just started workouts a couple weeks ago, which is still kind of concerning because he got injured over like a year and a half at this point, and if he's just starting workouts, I don't even know when he's going to return. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't take a toll on him because such a great defensive player, such a great player as a whole. But yeah, I think as of now we can rule him out for at least a couple months. But and then Fultz obviously it really sucks that he's having such a great season. But yeah, Magic has some interesting prospects for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the full roster now. I think that they're able to keep some pieces intact, which I don't really know how they're going to do as the Orlando Magic, but they could be like a playoff contender in a few years. I think.
Yeah. So I was one of the people who said the Magic won the trade. With
the Vooch trade?
With the Vooch trade?
I was one of the people who said that because I felt like Vooch was keeping them in a place where in a purgatory. I use that word again, but they they would have been stuck for like until Vooch retired, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
if
agreed.
they kept him. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like the Bulls are now in a sort of purgatory. So, I
Yeah.
guess wherever Vooch goes, he carries a sense of dread with him. But yeah, I mean that in the sense of keeping his team in purgatory. But yeah, I think the Magic, as Rohan said, I think they could be playoff contenders in a few years. Right now, I have them 12th because I just like their team, to be honest. But I could also see them falling lower, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah. And so I think just looking at the development of someone like Mo Bamba, who I've always liked, and hopefully he kind of he's been good in spurts. I just don't know if the Magic are ready to completely take him on as a player. But yeah, hopefully some development there. But just with injury concerns, I don't really know where they're standing at this point. But hopefully that new coaching change can develop some sort of cultural mindset in them. But after that, yeah, it was just the Cavs and Pistons, and I guess I would yeah, the Cavs and Pistons. Cavs actually just made headlines recently with a trade for Markkanen, who Ishan has described as useless. I know he hates a lot, and they got good return. I think the Bulls got a lottery protected first. Oh no, wait, the Bulls got a Derrick Jones Jr. in a second, or I don't know if they got
I
that.
think they
first.
got 2 first rounds.
Yeah, no, they got a first and a second.
Yeah.
Got a first from the Blazers, and that's good return for someone like Laurie. You know, at this point, no one really considers him a good player. For the Cavs, though, this is kind of interesting because you have your front court of the future in Allen and Mobley, yet you bring in Laurie, who can only play the 4. So I'm kind of confused on that. I mean, like how that's going to affect their development. But on the other hand, I kind of understand taking flyers on players that could potentially develop just because you're a small market team. I mean, no one's going to go to the Cavs, right? If you're taking a flyer on someone like Laurie and hope that he develops, I can sort of see that, but I just don't want it to put in jeopardy that Mobley Allen front court just because it can be really good if they play their cards right. So I'm kind of concerned with that Laurie trade. I think the Bulls got fine return. I think the Blazers picking up Larry Nance is a great trade. I think Larry Nance is a really good player. You know, someone who can do everything. Set screens, he's a reliable shooter, average, dunk, has playmaking potential there. So overall, I think it's a good pickup for the Blazers. Just concerned for the Cavs with Laurie coming in. So yeah, I have them on sort of the bottom tier. Yeah, and then just Pistons, I guess, seeing how much Cade can take this team. It doesn't really have talent around him. He has Sadiq and some other guys, but other than that, you know, I feel like it's kind of questionable where the direction of the team is going. So we'll see how big of a talent he can actually prove to be. Yeah, but I think we've kind of come to consensus. We do have similar rankings for the East as compared to the West. The West was kind of a bit all over the place.
2 positions being switched.
Yeah, just sort of position changes. I think I'm a lot higher on the Heat, but yeah, overall, I feel like great discussions. Seeing how the Sixers would develop, seeing how the Heat goes, Celtics, hopefully Hawks taking the next step, and then you've just kind of got those sort of bottom tier teams and the Hornets and Wizards. But overall, yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap up the podcast over here. But hopefully you all enjoyed, heard some good takes, heard some bad takes, and thank you all for listening. Hopefully in the next episode we can finally get to rankings awards as you said for the past 2 episodes. Yeah, definitely some engaging discussions over here. And yeah, thank you all for listening.